Those who couldn't attend could watch the recording. Even those who attended can still be watching the recording. It's much better than face to face because you have recordings that you can fall back on. At this point, let me share my slide. So we're going to begin with the Speech Act, and we'll quickly go through it before we go to the definitions. So you need to brace yourself for a quick pace class because we missed one class already. Speech Acts. So what are Speech Acts? Before I proceed, I just needed confirmation that you guys can see the slide. Can you guys see the slide?
Yes.
No.
Okay,
No,
good.
please. Oh,
I muted myself.
can't see.
Okay.
We can now see.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can
good.
see.
If you can't see, we can't see anything.
Okay, so if you cannot see, then it has to do with your device. If some people can see, then it's working. Those who can't see, check your device. All right. So Speech Act. The Speech Act is an utterance that performs a certain function in language and communication. We perform speech acts when we ask questions. That's the first one. Make a request, assert a proposition, make judgment, express emotions, and so on. A speech act may be one word, a complete sentence, or an incomplete one. So here we see three important points. First of all, any utterance is a speech act. Second, it comes in various ways: questions, requests, propositions, judgments, emotional expressions. They are all speech acts. And then the last point, it could be one word, it could be a sentence, it could be a phrase. So those are the three important points about speech acts. So the question is types. What types of speech acts are we dealing with? First of all, we have the interrogative sentence. Interrogative sentences are what we normally call questions. They end in question mark. The purpose of interrogative sentences is to solicit or require information from someone. Interrogative sentences cannot be true or false. So interrogative sentences, or you just call them interrogatives, they are what we call questions. Of course, you know about questions. They end in question mark. A question cannot be true or false. When you ask a question, it can't be judged to be true or false. So examples, here you have the interrogatives. Do you have the keys to the door? How are you doing this morning? What's your name? So these are interrogatives.
Yes.
Then you have the imperatives. Imperatives.
Yes.
So before we go to imperatives, we said interrogatives are what? Let me disable your microphones. Okay. So now your microphones have been disabled so that we can get on with the class. When I need you guys to make contributions, I will open up your mics once again. So we said interrogatives are for what's their function? Interrogatives are sentences made to require information from someone. When you ask a question or utter an interrogative, you are soliciting information. So questions or interrogatives, their function is to solicit information from someone. So that's what you should know about interrogatives, which we call questions. They are spoken to solicit information, solicit or require or request information from someone. When you ask a question, you are looking for information. You want to be answered. The answer is an information. It's a piece of information. Imperatives. Imperatives are sentences spoken to require someone to do something. So this one is not like soliciting information. This one is like soliciting action. So interrogatives, are sentences spoken to solicit action, to get someone to do something. That's imperatives. And we have different types. We have commands, instructions, directives, requests, pleas. These are all imperatives. A command is used to offer authoritative or dictatorial order for something to be done. An instruction is a direction or order used to guide someone to do something. A directive is an authoritative order used to establish a policy, assign responsibilities, define a set of objectives, and delegate authorities to someone to do something. A request is an act of asking politely or formally for something to be done. A plea is a supplication for a certain action or decision to be taken. These are all imperatives. So you can see that we have soft imperatives and hard imperatives. The soft imperatives are the pleas, the requests, and then the hard imperatives are the commands and the directives. And then request is somewhat in the middle. Examples of imperatives: clear this desk by tomorrow, please water the plant, drive to the junction on 10. So these are all examples of imperatives. We said imperatives are spoken to solicit action or to require someone to do something. Then you have the declaratives. Now, we said that interrogatives are spoken to solicit information. Imperatives are spoken to solicit action. But declaratives are spoken to convey information, to provide information. So the function of declaratives is to provide information. So they can therefore be true or false. Declarative sentences are spoken to make a statement. They end in a period. In logic, declarative sentences are called propositions. They include the following: factual statements, value statements, definitions, and arguments. So declaratives are spoken to provide information, and we have four types. We have factual statements, value statements, definitions, and arguments. Factual statements. So a type of declarative. A factual statement or a statement of fact is an expression that conveys information about the state of affairs in the external world. So a factual statement gives you information about what? Facts or the state of affairs in the external world. Of course, facts are more like items in the external world. That's what we normally see as facts. So a factual statement is true if it conveys accurate information about facts, and false if the factual information is inaccurate. So let's see examples of factual statements. Grass is green, snow is white. That man is the current vice chancellor of University of Ghana. So these are all factual statements about facts. Then you have the definitions. Definitions are sentences spoken to convey information about the meaning of a word. So this is the second type of declaratives. Now we say that wise factual statements provide information about facts. Definitions provide information about meaning, the meaning of words. So the function of definitions is what? The meaning of words. Examples. If you look at these examples, you'll see that they are technically what? Definitions. You look at the predicate, you see that what the predicate of the sentence is doing is to provide information about the meaning of the subject. the predicate is providing information about the meaning of the subject. That's what you see in those sentences. A lion is a large carnivorous feline mammal of Africa and northwest India, having a short tawny coat, a tufted tail, and in the male a heavy mane around the neck and shoulders. So that's the definition of a lion. It's not a factual statement about a lion, you know. A factual statement about a lion would be a lion just came here, or a lion is suspected to be here tomorrow, or a lion came yesterday, or a lion attacked Mr. Yebua. Those are factual statements. But this one is when you see a lion is a so type of animal with this or that. That's a definition of a lion. So you can tell whether a sentence is a factual statement or a definition by, or even the other one we've not treated yet, by looking at what the predicate is doing. The function of the predicate. If the function of the predicate is to provide information about the meaning of something, then it's a definition. If the function of the predicate is to provide information about fact, to tell you some factual thing about this thing, then that's factual statement. The second example, a bed is a piece of furniture upon which or within which a person sleeps, rests, or stays when not well. So that's the definition. Then you have the value statement. A value judgment or statement is a claim about something's moral, practical, and aesthetic value or suitability. Statement about something's moral, practical, and aesthetic value or suitability. Value judgments do not describe the world like factual statements do. They don't describe the world. Value statements don't describe the world. That's for factual statements. Value judgments, rather value judgments prescribe. What value judgments do is to prescribe certain attitudes or behaviors towards the world. They are concerned with prescribing how the world ought to be, rather than describing how the world actually is. So, factual statements describe the world how it actually is, but value statements prescribe how the world should be, not really how it is, but how it should be or how it shouldn't be. So that's what value judgments or value statements do. Look at some examples. That's right, that's wrong. Michael is a good man. Jezebel has no conscience. The first two examples look prescriptive. That's right, that's wrong. That's like prescribing. The second two look descriptive, but prescriptively descriptive. That's they describe in the light of a value. They describe something or someone in the light of certain values. So it's descriptive, but really, technically speaking, it is prescriptive. Two types of value judgments. So we have two types of value judgments. We have moral and non-moral. The moral value judgments are claims about something's moral suitability or otherwise. So the moral value judgments are when you're talking about moral value. Examples: abortion is evil. Do not commit adultery. Do not insult your spouse. Those are moral value judgments. Value judgments of a moral nature. Then you have the non-moral value. The non-moral value judgments or claims or the non-moral value statements are claims about something's practical or aesthetic suitability or value. Examples: Ofori is an excellent student. The shirt is too tight on you. That car is beautiful. So now these are values, but they are not moral values. Excellence is not a moral value. Ofori is an excellent student. Excellent is not really moral, but it's a value. That shirt is too tight on you. Something being tight on you is not really a moral issue, but it's still a value issue. It's still an issue of that has to do with some value, the value of some, of wearing something that fits. That car is beautiful. That's aesthetic value, the value of beauty. Okay. Now let's go to emotive expressions. Emotive expressions are sentences that express feelings. Emotive expressions show strong feeling may often end in exclamation mark. But this is not always the case for all emotive expressions. So let's look at some example of emotive. So we said emotive expressions are sentences that express feelings. So if you see a sentence that's expressing feeling, it's an emotive expression. Example, I love that guy. I love that guy is an emotive expression. It's expressing a feeling. You can see it's not a factual statement, it's not a definition, it's not even a value judgment, it's just an emotive expression. I love that guy. That's love is a feeling. I hate how she dresses. So hate or hatred is a feeling. We hope you win the tournament. We hope you win the tournament. Now, hope itself is a feeling. Hallelujah. Hallelujah is a feeling. When you feel high in the religious sense, what you say is what? Hallelujah. Okay. Sentence fragments. Sentence fragments are incomplete sentences lacking either noun or verb. Incomplete sentences. Incomplete sentences lacking either noun or verb. Sometimes sentence fragments act as signposts to show direction or to advertise a product. So they can act as what? Signposts. They can also act as slogans. That's what incomplete sentences do. Now look at some examples of incomplete sentences so that you can see what people normally do with them. Desmond for parliament. So that's a political what? A political campaign slogan. A political campaign slogan. Yam with sauce. Yam with sauce. That's something you could see in front of a what? In front of a restaurant or a food vendor. Your dream house. Your dream house. So that's like an advertisement. Your dream house. So let's do some exercises. Rewrite the following emotive expressions as value judgments. Now let me open up your microphones so that we can do this exercise together. Rewrite the following emotive expressions as value judgments. Now, so these are emotive expressions. What a beautiful lady is an emotive expression. You are asked to convert it to a value judgment. So, what a beautiful lady, convert it to a value judgment. Is there anyone who can give it a try? If you want to attempt an answer, you can raise your hand. I hope you know where to raise your hand. Okay, so someone is raising Joseph. Yeah, so Joseph, go ahead.
Yes, I would say that the lady is beautiful.
The lady is beautiful. So that's a value judgment. That's right. You've converted it from an emotive expression to a value judgment. How kind he is. How kind he is. Convert to a value judgment. You have Selim. Selim, can you answer that? Selim. Selim, how kind he is. Convert it to a value judgment.
He
So
is
what?
kind.
Okay, he is kind. He is kind. That's right. The third one, what an extremely delightful journey. What an extremely delightful journey. Convert to a value.
I can hear you.
What an extremely delightful journey. Please, someone convert to a value journey. Someone is here. Feta Vasco. Vasco, can you answer that? What an extremely delightful journey. Convert it to a value judgment. Then you have Priska. Priska, can you answer? Priska.
Yes, sir. The
Yeah,
journey
so
was okay. Okay. The journey was extremely delightful.
very good. So let's move on to the next exercise. Rewrite the imperative sentences below as interrogative sentences. Rewrite the imperative sentences below as interrogative sentences. Shut your mouth up. Rewrite it as an interrogative. Pistis. Yeah, so pistis was good. And then you have Yeboah and Elizabeth.
Can you shut your mouth up?
Will you shut your mouth up? That's correct. Speak loudly. Speak loudly. Speak loudly.
Can you shut your mouth up?
Will you shut your mouth up? That's correct. Then speak loudly. The second one is speak loudly. Convert speak loudly to an interrogative.
Will you speak loudly?
Very good. Very good. Get up quickly and read your books. Get up quickly and read your books. Convert to an interrogative.
Will you get up quickly and read your book?
Okay, very good. Very good. Very good. Now, if you look at okay, wait. Let me close down your mics first. I want to say certain things. If you look at these imperatives that we have turned into interrogatives, you see that the interrogative form is still performing the function of an imperative. You see that the interrogatives we've turned them into is still performing the function of an imperative. Will you shut your mouth up? It's an interrogative, but it performs the function of an interrogative. So if, for instance, someone asks you, will you shut your mouth up? Is it an interrogative or an imperative? So what would be your answer? Will you shut your mouth up? Interrogative.
Yes, please.
Okay. So what I want to say there is that will you shut your mouth up is structurally an interrogative. Will you shut your mouth up is structurally an interrogative, but it is functionally an imperative. So in terms of structure, will you shut your mouth up is an interrogative because it's in the form of a question. But in terms of its function, and its function is to get someone to shut up. So its function is an imperative. Its function is that of an imperative. So structurally it's an interrogative, but functionally it is an imperative. If somebody asks you to choose one, which one is it? Is it an interrogative or an imperative? Then you have to decide what to choose, whether to choose the structure or the function. Which one will you choose? Is it the structure or the function? Will you shut your mouth up is structurally an interrogative, but it is functionally an imperative. That's by structure, it is an interrogative, but it performs the function of an interrogative because you are expecting the person to shut up, which is an action. So, is it an interrogative or is it an imperative? When you are faced with choosing between structure and function, the best thing to do is to choose function. Function is more important than structure. The purpose of structure is to achieve function. So if the two of them are to clash, we'll take function because we're not doing anything with structure. Structure is just, a means to an end, something like that. Now rewrite the following interrogative sentences as statements of fact. Rewrite the following interrogative sentences as statements of fact. The first one is Amma playing football? Is Amma playing football is an interrogative. Convert it to a factual statement. Who has not answered? Is it Yebua or is it Shrazu? Or is it Priska Abati?
Sir,
Okay, Priska. Looks like you've answered before, but go on.
sir, please, it's not present.
Okay. Amma is playing football.
Amma is playing football. That's a factual statement. That's correct. Has he finished his homework? Has he finished his homework? Convert it to a factual statement.
He has finished his homework.
Good. Is the match coming off today? Is the match coming off today?
The match is coming up today.
Okay, good. Good. So now we're going to look at definitions. We just finished looking at okay. So we just discussed factual statement and value judgment. But the second week is dedicated to doing only definitions. And very soon we're going to see the reason why. So let's look at definitions and their problems. Okay, someone's hand is raised, and let me see what. Did anybody raise his hand just recently? Okay, all those who raise their hands can bring down their hands because the last brain exercise is we've just passed it. Okay, so definitions and their problems. Definitions are statements used to convey information about the meaning of words. Statements used to convey information about the meaning of words. Being accurate about the meaning of things is very essential in critical thinking. Now, the reason why definitions are important is that any logician or critical thinking needs to be very sure about the meaning he has of various things.
Oui.
If you are in an argument as a critical thinker or as a logician, uh, I think I need to mute everyone. Okay. Okay, good. So the reason why definitions are important is that they provide the meaning of words, information about the meaning of words. Now, the worst thing that can happen to a critical thinker or a logician is to be engaged in an argument and then, unknown to him or her, his or her understanding of a certain thing, a certain concept or word, even if it's just a little thing, her understanding of it is not accurate. So all the arguments she's been making are based on an inaccurate understanding. So all that someone else has to point out is that, the meaning you have of this thing is not correct. And it's possible that you base your whole argument on your misunderstanding of the meaning of something. And so the whole argument stands at risk of falling. So that's how important meaning is to critical thinking. Making a fantastic argument when the meaning you have of something is not accurate. It's like buying a brand new car and then you are running without good tires, or one of the tires has been deflated. So let's look at two types of meanings. First of all, you have connotation, which is the descriptive meaning of words, like dictionary definitions. Any meaning that can be described is a connotation. If you can write down the meaning of something, or you can describe it in your words, then that meaning is connotation. That's what we call connotation. But if you cannot describe the meaning of something, if it can best be demonstrated by hand signals or something, then that's denotation. So denotation is the non-descriptive meaning. It's more like the examples of something out there. The non-descriptive meaning, more like the examples of something out there. So connotation is to describe, denotation is to point at something. In the absence of description, you could point at something and say, oh, look at this. Now let's look at the difference between definiendum and definiens. These are the two parts of a sentence in a definition. Now you already know that we have what we call a subject and a predicate in English grammar. Now that part of the sentence that we call the subject, in definition we call it definiendum. Definiendum. And then that part of the sentence that is the predicate, in definitions we call it definiens. So definiendum is the subject in a sentence that's a definition. Definiens is the predicate in a sentence that is a definition. The definiendum is a word or phrase to be defined. The definiens refers to the sentence which does the defining. For instance, the definition cat is a large ungulate-necked mammal. The definiendum cat is the definiendum, and then the definiens is the rest of the sentence. It's a long-necked ungulate mammal. The definiendum is analogous to the subject, whereas the definiens is analogous to the predicate in English grammar. Now, with our understanding of the difference between connotation and denotation, and the difference between definiendum and definiens, let's look at types of definitions. Definitions are various types. First of all, you have the lexical definitions, which are also called dictionary definitions. So the definitions you find in your dictionaries, we call them lexical definitions. Lexicon is a collection or a list of items with their meanings. That's what we call a lexicon. So lexicon actually means dictionary. I can say that dictionaries are one of the types of lexicon. Ostensive definition is a non-verbal way of conveying the meaning of a word by pointing to the actual object or demonstrating the meaning of the word in real-life situations. So color words such as yellow, red, green, blue, they cannot be described or defined descriptively. So ostensive definition is a non-verbal way of defining something, of conveying the meaning of something, by pointing to an actual object, especially those things that don't have connotative meaning. There are certain things that don't have connotative meaning. You can't describe them. You can't describe them morally. You can't write them down. You can only point to something. Example of such things are color. Yellow, blue, you can't define yellow in a connotative way. You can't write a description of yellow. It's not possible. So the only way you can show someone the meaning of yellow is to point to an actual yellow object and say, this is yellow. This object is yellow. This is what I mean. So color words such as yellow, green, blue, they cannot be defined connotatively. They can only be defined denotatively. Okay, so theoretical definitions. Theoretical definitions are definitions that originated from specific disciplines. There are certain words that came from different disciplines. Example, inflation. You know where inflation came from? It came from economics. So the definition of inflation is what? Is a theoretical definition because it came from a particular discipline. Similarly, you have bipolar disorder. So the definition of bipolar disorder came from psychology. And then the definition of viral load came from biochemistry. Example, viral load is a numeral expression of the quantity of viruses in a given volume of fluid. So that's the definition of viral load. So these are examples of theoretical definitions. Stipulative definition. Now, stipulative definition, we use this kind of definition when we assign a meaning to a word either for the first time or for a specific project. Just imagine that you are doing a project in a village. In your 400 level, you went to a village to do some research about the income of the villagers. That's how the villagers earn their money. And then at the end of the project, you need to start writing the paper. You want to start with a definition of income. And then you go to your dictionary to get a meaning of income. And your dictionary tells you that income means salary, that kind of description. Not directly calling it salary, but you see that the definition amounts to what? Salary. But the villagers are not on salary, they earn their income in other ways, informal ways, self-employment, and so on. So it becomes clear to you that the dictionary definition of income doesn't match what you found in a village. And then you have to set up. So you can first of all write out the definition in the dictionary, and then you say you disagree with it. That in the light of your project, that a definition can be defined as this. So that will be a stipulative definition. You have created a definition. When you create a definition yourself, that's a stipulative definition. Example, the Ghanaian word frenemy means a person who is an enemy but is pretending to be a friend, or someone who is a friend and also a rival or opponent. So you don't find frenemy in the dictionary, you can't find frenemy on the internet, but you find them around, in the locality. So that's an example of a stipulated. It was stipulated to address a certain situation. Then you have the operational definition. Now, operational definition is to define a term by describing a set of actions or operations that, when accomplished, will determine the entity referred to by the term. So, any definition that involves a set of operations or an operation or a set of procedures is an operational definition. Example: a solution is an acid if and only if litmus paper, when dipped into acid, turns red when dipped into it. A solution is an acid if and only if litmus paper turns red when dipped into it. So this is an operational definition because it describes the operation or set of procedures of actually dipping a piece of paper into a liquid. So that's an operation. And that's why we call it an operational. Any definition involving a sort of operation, no matter how short, is an operational definition. A substance, second example, a substance is translucent if and only if, when held up to light, some of the lights come through. So that's the definition of translucent. The definition involves a short operation, which is to hold something onto the light. Still on operational definition. Note that an operational definition must specify an operation. For instance, the definition a solution is an acid if and only if it has pH of less than 7 is correct, but it's not an operational definition because it does not outline an operation, a procedure, or a step-by-step demonstration of a phenomenon. So, a solution is an acid if and only if it has a pH of less than 7. That's correct. It's a correct definition of an acid, but it doesn't involve an operation, so you can't call it an operational definition. Any operational definition must involve a little operation mentioned in the definition. Then we come to the what we call the real or essential definition. An essential or real definition is the only definition that captures the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. All other definitions are unable to capture the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. Now, what does it mean to capture the necessary and sufficient conditions for a definiendum? Now, it means that you need to describe the definiendum so accurately that no other definiendum can claim that definiens. If a definiens defines or describes a definiendum so accurately that no other definiendum can fit that definiens, then it means that definiens has captured the necessary and sufficient conditions for the definiendum. An essential definition, if you want to know if something is an essential definition, what you do is to remove the definiendum, leaving only the definiens. If the definiens is present, if the definiens is presented to you, if the definiens alone is presented to you without the definiendum, just by looking at the definiens, you should be able to know the definiendum. That's what tells you a definition is an essential definition. If a definiens is presented to you without the definiendum, and you are confused what the definiendum could be, then that definition is not an essential definition. In an essential definition, you should know the definiendum immediately you see the definitions. The definiendum should be very clear. And you find the essential definitions mostly in mathematics. Example, a prime number is any number divisible by only itself and 1. A prime number is any number divisible by only itself and 1. If you look at this example, just removing the definiendum and looking at only the definiends tells you what the definiendum is automatically. Wherever you see the definiends alone, you automatically know the definiendum. You wouldn't be confused. But when you step outside mathematics, most of the definiends that are presented to you will not immediately make it clear to you what the definiendum is. So that's why I would say that outside essential definitions, all other definitions are essentially contestable. All other definitions are essentially contestable. Because outside essential definitions, most definiends can go with, more than one definiendum. Almost comfortably. Okay, let's do a little exercise. And for that, I think I will have to allow your microphones. Okay, so this exercise is coming before we begin to look at the problem with definitions. Determine the type of definition in each of the following passages. Determine the type of definition in each of the following passages. A house means this, and I can see the diagram or the picture of a house. A house means this, and you see the picture of a house. What kind of definition is that? If you want to answer, please raise your hand. If you raise your hand, then I'll tell you to go ahead. Love as you do, please. What kind of definition is that?
It's denotation definition.
Yeah, the denotation. You call it ostensive definition. You call it ostensive definition. The definition that uses only denotation. All right, then the second one, water means a molecule composed of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 1 oxygen atom. Water means a molecule composed of 2 hydrogen atoms bonded to 1 oxygen atom. What kind of definition is that? Is that Ebenezer? Ebenezer. Ebenezer, can you answer that? Ebenezer Machi, you can put on your microphone. Your microphone is off. You can put it on, and then you can answer. Then you have Bafu. Bafu, do you want to answer?
Is operational definition.
Operational. Operation. So does it specify an operation?
Water means a molecule composed of 2 hydrogen atoms.
Okay, so the question is whether the definition specifies an operation. Joseph has raised his hand, and then some new entry is raising his hand.
So it is essential or real definition.
Essential or real?
It is essential or real definition.
Okay, essential or real definition. Yeah, I think that's a good point, because when you look at the definitions alone, you can tell the definiendum. That's good. That's fine. Remember that it can be more than one. So it can be essential at the same time as lexical and theoretical, you know. So it can be more than one type of definition. So when you are talking, lists all the types that it can be, you know. A nuclear family is a living unit composed of a man, woman, and children. Nuclear family is a living unit composed of a man, woman, and children. Joseph.
It's a real or essential definition.
Joseph, are you answering?
I said it is a real or essential definition.
Nuclear family, real or essential. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. But there's a little problem might come up in future, because when someone begin to adopt same-sex marriages, then the definition of nuclear family might change at that time. So to avoid that situation, you have to check and ask yourself if this thing might change in the future. All right. And I think another thing you can do is to the only answers that are 100% correct. The only answers that are 100% correct for essential definitions are examples in mathematics. So if you see that it is in mathematics, you can say it's essential definition. If it's outside mathematics, then you are likely to say no, it's not an essential definition. So I think that would be to be on the safer side, because outside mathematics, certain things might change when the society is changing.
You didn't hear of Bernard today. You didn't hear of him.
Vasco raised his hand. Vasco, do you want to say something? And,
Hello,
okay.
hello, sir.
Yes.
I would like to ask the question.
Yes, go ahead.
Please, are there disparities between stipulative definition and then indigenous words?
Stipulative definitions and indigenous words.
Did I tell you what happened?
Yes, please.
The alarm was beeping. Fire alarm.
Well,
I think we thought it was a padlock.
Has been created.
So I asked Bernard to remove the padlock and bring it.
So please, I can't hear anything. Someone is making noise at the back there.
Okay. Let me mute everyone. Okay, so stipulative definitions are usually definitions that have been created, usually recently. So stipulative definitions are definitions that have been created, usually recently. So indigenous words are not likely to have been recent creations. So I doubt that you should, see indigenous words as stipulative.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let's look at problems with definitions. And in fact, this is where we've been coming to, because we're interested in definitions because of the problems that can come from definitions. Definitions can fail to provide accurate meaning in several ways, such as being too narrow, too broad, vague, secular, or begging. So various problems with definitions: too narrow, too broad, vague, secular, begging a question. Let's see some of them quickly. Too broad. A definition is too broad if the definition refers to objects or properties beyond those needed to define a definiendum. A definition is too broad if the definition refers to objects or properties beyond those needed to define a definiendum. In other words, if the items denoted in the definitions go beyond what is needed to define the definiendum accurately, then the definition is too broad. Now, when a definiens is providing a meaning of a definiendum and it is describing certain things that by implication go beyond the definiendum, then the definition is too broad. Example, a toy is a machine. A toy is a machine. Now, defining a toy as a machine, is too broad because there are many machines that are not toys. So the word machine is too broad to define a toy. There are too many machines that are not toys. So saying that a toy is a machine is a definition that is too broad. Then too narrow. A definition is too narrow if the definition fails to capture the full range of items needed to define a definiendum. A definition is too narrow if the definition fails to capture the full range of items needed to define a definiendum. In this case, one realizes that the definition lists fewer items than is denoted by the definiendum. Definiens doesn't list all the items required to define the definiendum appropriately. Example, a toy is a tiny car used by infants to play. A toy is a tiny car used by infants to play. Now note, there are many toys that are not made in the form of a tiny car. So saying that a toy is a tiny car is to define toy with only some examples of toys. The definition doesn't represent all toys. So the definition, because the definition doesn't represent all toys, or the definition doesn't describe something that shows all toys, then the definition is too narrow. Because the definition is trying to narrow toy down to just toy car. Vagueness. A definition is vague if there's no way of telling what class of things the definition refers. If there's no way of telling what class of things the definition refers. Example of a vague definition. Democracy is a kind of government where there is freedom for all. Democracy is a kind of government where there is freedom for all. Now, this definition does not clarify who all refers. Whether all refers to all human beings, animals, birds, crocodiles, and so on. So, saying democracy is a kind of government where there is freedom for all, the definition is vague because it doesn't properly refer to human beings. Ambiguous. A definition is ambiguous if the definition presents more than one possible meaning of the definiendum. If the definition presents more than one possible meaning. More than one possible meaning. So you can see this is different from vagueness. You can see how ambiguous is different from vagueness. Vagueness is that it doesn't refer to a particular class of items. The definition doesn't refer to a particular class of items. But for ambiguous, the definitions might refer to a class of items, but it is presenting more than one possible meaning of what it is referring to, or more than one possible interpretation. A sentence is ambiguous if it lends itself to more than one distinct interpretation. Examples: of ambiguous definitions include faith is true belief. Faith is true belief. Now look at, in the first example, true belief could mean either sincere belief or a belief that is not false. So when you say faith is true belief, you are just opening it to different interpretations. True belief means a sincere belief. True belief also means a belief that is not false. So there are different ways to interpret it. Secularity. The definition is circular if the definiendum appears in the definiens or if the definiendum is cited as part of the definiens. Secularity, if the definiendum appears in the definiens, then that's secularity. In other words, if the definiendum is repeated in the definiens, then that's secularity. Examples. Morality is to be morally right. Morality is to be morally right. Metaphysics is the systematic study of metaphysical disciplines. Pentagon is a plane figure having the shape of a pentagon. Once you see a repetition of the definiendum in the definiens, then that's secularity. Begging the question. A definition begs the question if the definiens is obscure, digresses from providing meaning, or does not help in shedding meaning on the definiendum. If the definiens digresses from providing meaning, the definiens digresses from providing meaning. Example, Jubilee House if the definiens digresses from providing meaning. In other words, the definiens fails to do what it is supposed to do as definiens and begins performing another function, like the function of a factual statement or value judgment, then it means the definition begs the question. Example, Jubilee House is the office where every Ghanaian wants to be. Jubilee House is the office where every Ghanaian wants to be. Is that the definition of Jubilee House? Does it provide the meaning of Jubilee House? It looks like the definiens is rather doing the work of a value judgment. Okay, so the correct definition is Jubilee House is the name given to the office of the President of Ghana. The name given to the office of the President of Ghana. That's the meaning of Jubilee House. So let's exercise ourselves a little. Diagnose the problems with the following definitions. Diagnose the problems with the following definitions. The first one, a bird is an animal that has wings. A bird is an animal that has wings. What's the problem with that definition? A bird is an animal that has wings. Joseph, do you want to answer that?
Sir, please,
Yes. Too what?
broad.
Too broad. Please teach us on why it's too broad. So why is it too broad? Bafo, you want to explain?
So I think the number one is too narrow.
Okay, so explain to us why it's too narrow.
Okay, so yeah, they are just saying that a bird has wings. And we all know that birds, they don't only have wings, they have other parts too. So the information is actually narrow.
They don't just have wings, they also have other parts. Okay, so I think what is happening is that you need to know the procedure for deciding whether something is a definition is too narrow or too broad. So let me come up with a procedure. The procedure is that you have to ask yourself at least 2 or 3 questions. Now I'm going to provide an example of how those questions are, So let's look at this definition. A bird is an animal that has wings. Okay. So the first question will be, and the question is usually about the relationship between the definitions and the definiendum. Now the first question, a bird is an animal that has wings. The first question is it all birds that have wings? Is it all birds that have wings?
No.
All birds that have wings?
No, not all birds.
Hey,
Are
all
there,
birds.
come
Hey.
again.
All
Not
birds
all.
have wings.
All birds have wings.
Yes.
Okay, all birds have wings. Yeah, the person who said not all birds have wings. Which ones don't have wings?
I know of a penguin. Said a
Penguin.
penguin.
Penguins don't have wings. Let me see.
Hey, they have. Oh.
Na lie.
Penguins.
They have.
They have.
These are the kind.
They have, sir. They have.
They have.
Yeah, they have wings.
Even
They do
cock
have
crab wings.
wings.
So,
Eh,
even cock crab wings.
Okay, so
Hey,
I'm
they
asking
have wings.
Google, and Google is saying they have wings. So
I know all of them.
not all of them. Yeah, but the information I'm seeing online is indicating that. Okay, so penguins are birds, so they do have wings. However, the wing structures of penguins are evolved for swimming rather than flying in the traditional sense. So penguins swim underwater at speeds of up to 25 miles per. So the information online is that they have wings, but their wings are for swimming rather than flying. Okay, so that means all birds have wings. Now, so to the question, is it all birds that have wings? Majority of you said yes. Then the second question, is it all creatures with wings? Is it all living things with wings that are birds?
No, sir. No.
Oh, sir.
No. Because cock have wings, but
Cocks have wings. They don't. They are not birds.
they are not birds.
Okay, so give me a list of those living things with wings that are not birds.
Hen.
Sir.
Yeah,
Mosquito.
mosquitoes.
A mosquito. Hey.
Insects.
Yes.
Swimming insects.
Housefly.
Yeah, so flying insects. Flying insects have wings but are not birds. So apart from flying insects, what are other examples?
Cockroaches. Flying squirrel.
Yeah, cockroach is a flying insect. So they are all flying insects.
Yeah. And a bat. A bat. A bat.
A bat. So bats have wings but they are not birds.
A bat.
Okay, so now, okay, so now it has become clear that so it has become clear that not all living things with wings are birds. So that means that the quality of having wings go beyond birds. So to define birds as with the quality of having wings is to credit birds with a quality that goes beyond birds. And we say that when you define a definiendum by stating properties that go beyond the definiendum, then the definition is what? Too broad. So a bird is an animal that has wings is what? It's a definition that is too broad. Second one, a human being is an animal that has two legs. A human being is an animal that has two legs. So who can answer this question for us?
That place is too broad.
It's too narrow.
Too broad.
It's too
broad
narrow.
and narrow. Too broad
Too
and
broad.
too narrow. So please
So
explain
it's
why.
too narrow.
Okay, so explain why it's too narrow.
So to me, I said a human being is an animal that has two legs. You know, there are several animals which have two legs. So human being is not just an animal with two legs, because if you want to look at animals with two legs, you can't even finish counting them. Guinea fowl is one, and several other animals in the bush. But human beings, there are several features that human beings have, which they can be identified by such a way that when you see the definitions, you can be able to tell that it is a human being. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you are bringing up several points. One is that having two legs is a quality that goes beyond human beings. That will make the definition too broad. And then the second one is that, like you said, having two legs is not the only thing that defines human beings. So saying a human being is an animal with two legs, that is too narrow because a human being has other things. But that question is not raised in this, that problem is not raised in this question. So if you, the problem raised in the question is whether defining a human being as an animal with two legs is too broad or too narrow or secular or whatever. You know, so what would be the correct answer? If by your analysis having two legs goes beyond human beings, then you should be saying that the definition is too broad, because that's the definition
No,
of being too broad.
so I'm only saying, I'm rather saying that having two legs is too narrow for human beings.
Yeah, but that is outside the question. The question is asking whether two legs is too narrow or too broad. That is two legs in particular. You know, so if you say a human being is an animal that has two legs, is it too broad or too narrow? And we said, you yourself said having other animals have two legs. So it means that two legs is a quality that goes beyond human beings. So that makes the definition too broad. So the question about whether the definition is too narrow because legs are not the only things, that's not the question that was asked. That will be a different issue. Okay. So if, for instance, you are asked whether if you are asked about the leading parties, the leading political parties in the country, you mentioned two parties, you know. That would be answering the question directly. But you could, if that question is not asked, there are some other political parties you could also put there, or if you are asked about those who are making up the cabinet of a government, you mention them. But there are some other members of the cabinet, they are not they are not supposed to be mentioned because they are not the type of people you think about when you think about a cabinet. People like secretaries and all those people, they are part of the cabinet, but when you are asked to mention the members of the cabinet, those are not the type of people you are expected to list. You are expected to leave just the ministers, the president himself, and his vice president. So that's what the question looks like. The question asks you to focus on whether the reference to two legs, what is the problem that the reference to two legs is giving the definition. Okay. Then there's the third question. A bird is a feathered animal that can fly. A bird is a feathered animal that can fly. So who can answer that? We can ask our procedural questions. Okay, but let me Mubarak.
Yeah.
Yes, so a bird is a feathered animal that can fly.
Too narrow.
Too narrow. Please explain to us why the question is too narrow.
Yeah. So, as someone said earlier, they are also
Mubarak, you need to check the volume of your microphone. If you go to your device, the volume of your microphone is likely to be low. You have to raise it up.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Good. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was saying, as someone said earlier, penguins, they are not, what do you call it? They are not feathered, and they are birds, but they can also fly.
Yeah, I think they can fly.
Okay, they can, but they are not feathered.
Yeah, feathered. Okay, they are not feathered. A bird is a feathered animal that can fly. So you are saying penguins are not feathered?
Yeah.
Okay. And then can fly.
Yeah. Sir,
Yes.
please, penguins do have feathers. Penguins do have feathers. You can check it.
Okay, penguins do have feathers. Okay, so but they attend.
They have feathers though, but they cannot fly.
Okay, but I don't think that
They can only swim.
I don't think that the problem is with the feathers. I think the issue is with the ability to fly.
To fly, they can fly. They can fly. All animals can. All bird animals can fly. Whether they fly short,
There is
short
lying.
distance, they can fly. Wait to if they fly underwater, it means they can fly because so far as they have feathers, it means they can fly. Whether they fly short distance,
Do you fly underwater?
Please, how can a bird fly underwater?
Hey.
No, that is how. No,
The problem here is ostrich. They have feathers, but
How can a bird fly
they
underwater?
cannot fly.
Fly, but they have
they can
feathers.
fly. Oysters can fly. They can fly.
They
They fly
can't
before.
fly.
Fly.
Oh, it's
How?
Who is that?
no.
Fly. They can fly.
Okay, so I think we should proceed with our procedural questions. So the first procedural questions like we've used before. So is it every bird that can fly?
Yes.
Is it every bird? Is there any bird that cannot fly?
Yes, we have a bird that cannot fly.
Which one is it?
Yes.
Ostrich.
Ostrich cannot fly.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Ostrich
so
don't fly.
that means okay.
I
So
have
that
one.
means
Chickens do fly.
okay. So that means the first procedural question has met with a negative response. So because the first procedural question has met with a negative response, then it means that the ability to fly does not extend to all birds. It means that the ability to fly is not enough to define all birds. So to define a bird as basically an animal that can fly is what? It doesn't do justice to the meaning of a bird. It doesn't list qualities that adequately define a bird. And we said that makes the definition too what?
Narrow.
Too narrow.
Yes.
Too narrow. The ability to fly does not do enough justice to the definiendum birds. Okay, so philosophy is the study of the works of David Hume. Philosophy is the study of the works of David Hume. What's the problem? Is every philosophy the study of the works of David Hume?
No, sir.
Oh, so that means the works of David Hume are not enough to give us to describe the definiendum philosophy. That makes the definition too narrow. A submachine gun is a gun that shoots like a machine. A submachine gun is a gun that shoots like a machine.
It says secular or begging the question.
Yeah, it's secular. There is a repetition. There is a repetition of a word there. I think the word machine has appeared more than once. Happiness is an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness. Happiness is an emotion that people generally prefer to sadness. Is that the definition of happiness?
It's begging the question.
Okay, begging the question. All right, so that's it. I'm not sure we have any other slides for today's class. In our next class, we'll be discussing types of passages or discourses. And so right now, I would, if there are any more questions, please ask them quickly before I stop the recording, and so that I
I
can.
have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question. Please, at the first mention, you mentioned of this one, the operational, this one, the definition.
Yes.
I want to ask that can the operational definition called as practical definition? Because you may say of the little paper tending to red. If in my thing, I'm thinking that maybe it is practical because we have. If it's not practical, you can't see the operational definition well.
Yeah, it's an operational definition. It's also a theoretical definition. So we said
Okay.
an example could be more than one type of it can also be a lexical definition. It's possible to find that kind of definition in the dictionary as well. So that will give you that entitles it to be three kinds of definitions at once.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so
Yo,
I'm proceeding to stop the
If
recording.
Can't join
can
this
we get the
class,
slide?
the
Yeah,
lecture
Can we
begins.
the,
get
I'm
the
hearing you.
slides are appearing in the video. The video shows the slide from the beginning to the end. So just by watching the videos, you watch the slides too.
So where
Okay.
can we get the videos?
You guys are
We're
the
going to
videos.
upload